Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah.
So it's interesting to see, brother, you are here talking about the Quran and the preservation of the Quran. May Allah bless you and give you much more knowledge and give us much more knowledge so that we can clarify the issues to our critics, our non-Muslims friends.
Inshallah.
I see that not many people are doing this because you are one of them who has stepped forward. This is very good, and because the Quran is our primary source material for our belief, for our deen, for our religion.
Right? Yes, of course.
So it's very praiseworthy action that you're doing, alhamdulillah. And what I want to bring to your attention, something that you may have covered before, but specifically your discussion with Hatun. She's made some points which you should have challenged her, like we should always do when a critic comes along and started saying, look at your tradition, how it says this and this. Do not take it for granted. This is point number one. What we will establish is this: their accusations, their claims are based on what? Is it based on a sound tradition? Is it based on the Arabic? Is it based on the understanding which is correct of our traditions? Or is it just made up with no basis? So what I will do in the course of our discussion now is I want to bring some points that you discussed with her, and you will see that how she either went to a source which is considered to be weak, but she did not tell you that at all, and you haven't challenged her because you assumed for the sake of giving her the credit in terms of you always assume to be the best of her, that
right,
yes, she would not make things up. You assume she was narrating something which is a sahih or authentic tradition from our sources.
That's right, yes.
And you also assume perhaps that she's actually giving you the translation that is there in the translations of the actual Arabic. So some examples I want to share with you.
Right.
And in the process we will show the weaknesses of their approach, weaknesses of their criticism, and
definitely
by doing so we will show how their claims fall apart even before they begin. Okay?
Inshallah,
so I want to show you something that you discussed with her.
Yes.
By the way, you made some of the points we can all learn from.
Right.
Very nice points, which I will, if I remember, I'll mention as we go along. And yet it went to deaf ears for some reason. When your responses were succinct and adequate, but still some reason she didn't quite give in. That probably shows something other than sincerity. Allahu a'lam, who knows what's in their heart. What can I say? If something was so obviously made clear and still not. So it is not just Hatun. I'm not just responding in this discussion of ours to Hatun. It's all the critics that are coming and discussing.
It's the same, isn't it?
It's about the same rhetoric they use, the same rhetoric, right?
Yes, that's right.
So one of the things she brought up, I thought that's quite interesting, because on the face of it, it is quite grievous if you were to understand it by itself. Yeah? So this is one of them. Zuhri reports, we have heard that many Quran passages were revealed, but that those who had memorized them fell in the Yamama fighting. Those passages had not been written down. And following the deaths of those who knew them were no longer known. Nor had Abu Bakr, nor Umar, nor Uthman as yet collected the texts of the Quran. Those lost passages were not to be found with anyone after the deaths of those who had memorized them. Do you see the grievousness of this narration they are narrating? They're saying there is a narration in our Islamic sources where some of the passages were lost because the people who memorized them, after they were martyred, after they died, they were lost with them. It was not passed on or resurrected or transmitted or collected by any one of the compilers, whether it be Abu Bakr or Uthman. It was not even written down. It was lost forever. Now that really shows, how can you claim, you Muslims, that the Quran you have is exactly preserved? because that happened after the Prophet ﷺ.
Yes.
This happened while the Quran was supposed to have been compiled by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Umar.
This is after that.
This is after, yeah?
Yeah.
So none of the two compilation periods, they picked this verse up because they were lost apparently. Okay? So they will quote, this is from Kitab al-Masahif of Ibn Abi Dawud. Okay?
Without that.
Now how do we respond to this? It's very simple. Is it there in Kitab al-Masahif of Ibn Abi Dawud? We go to the source and we find, yes, this is the translation translated by Burton, who's an Orientalist, and he gives you the references. So he tells you this is in page 23, and that's how they quote page 23.
Yes, yes.
Because it's coming from them, right? Without independently checking them.
That's right.
Okay? So the Arabic is fine, no problem. So we have a report. Since we have a report, we need to know any transmissions of this nature, any narrations, what we call athar or hadith. We need to know, is this report reliable? First thing.
That's right. Yes.
Anything that you hear from Islamic traditions, Islamic sources, first question you ask, is this reliable? This is not Bukhari or Muslim, where majority of the Muslims consider to be reliable.
Oh,
right?
yes, yes, that's right.
This is from Kitab of Masahif of Ibn Abi Dawud.
That's right.
Okay? So we have scholars who have done what we call takhrij. Like, they have gone through all the narrations within this Kitab al-Masahif and then given the verdict after their reasonings, whether this is authentic, weak, totally unreliable, broken, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
This particular one, interestingly, the isnad, the chains of narration, is sahih, authentic, up to Zuhri reports.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting to learn about Imam al-Zuhri is this: he is known to report with balagha, called balaghat al-Zuhri. Okay? So we now are going to specific hadith signs where Imam Zuhri, when he reports, when he adds something from his own, balaghat al-Zuhri, his own explanation, what is the verdict according to the scholars of the hadith? So, umuman, generally, and balaghat al-Zuhri, فهي ضعيفة بل شديدة الضعف. So, generally speaking, all the balaghat of Zuhri, his explanations, his additions, by default, you can call it, are all weak. Not just weak, strongly weak. Okay? By default.
Zuhri,
so all balaghat al-Zuhri, this is taken by all scholars, right?
I see. Right.
Because this is falls لأنها في حكم المعدل. This falls in the hukum of mu'adal. Because he's narrating with explanation, he's not telling you where it's coming from. So this, his narrations, his balaghat, his explanations are not acceptable to be authentic except when it reaches us in other sources which are connected. We call mawsulan, sahihan, authentic, connected source, where not broken sources.
Not broken,
okay.
Right. Yeah.
Here, do we know?
Somewhere else, some other narrations.
Exactly.
Is similar.
So this report to us is not acceptable. Why? Because it's balaghat al-Zuhri. There is no corroborating report on this issue from a sahih source.
So it's a akhbar wahid, is it?
No, not
akhbar
this
ahad, no?
No, this is another classification.
Right.
Where a particular narrator, when they narrate, up to him, all the people in the chain, Abu al-Rabi', Ibn Wahab, Yunus, and then Ibn Shihab, which is al-Zuhri. So people before that, they're okay. They're trustworthy narrators. That's why up to him, Ibn Shihab is trustworthy.
Right.
But when he explains from himself, قال بلغنا أنه كان, when he says بلغنا, when he uses the word, it reached to me, okay? So something has come to me, but he didn't tell you from where, and so on. So his balaghat of Zuhri, unless there's a corroborating source from a sahih, authentic transmissions, we consider them to be extremely weak. So this report...
Can I ask you a question here?
Yeah.
Just curious, bit curious about it. So why some people give it authenticity of being sahih? Why some people say this hadith is sahih?
where did people say this is
No,
sahih?
didn't you
No,
say that
I said the person who has extracted all the hadith within it and given the verdict
Sorry.
of the sahih or not, he says clearly, look, إسناده صحيح إلى الزهري والأثر من بلاغاته. Up to Zuhri is Sahih, and then this is
subhanallah.
the Balaghat of Zuhri.
Subhanallah.
Yeah? So the scholars have explained the Balaghat of Zuhri,
Yeah.
as I mentioned
Up
already
to
now.
Zuhri is Sahih,
Yes.
and then after that,
Right.
it's
So now we know anyone who brings this up, for us, this report is extremely weak. Okay? We don't go by extremely weak narrations because
No.
Islamic tradition is such that people from over the centuries, from the very beginning, from very earlier on, they narrated whatever has come to them. Okay?
Yes.
And what they did was they, as much as they can, which is available to them, they will tell you where they get this information from. They will tell you, I heard this, or I was taught this, or I learned from this, or I read this, and they name the people, and it goes eventually to the source material, who the initial person was saying this. In this case, it could be the Prophet ﷺ, or it could be one of the companions, right?
definitely.
Right. So this is the Islamic tradition. You'll find many traditions like this are reported in books of history and books of hadith. It is the role of the scholars of hadith who will then start saying, okay, let us now analyze this chains of narration and analyze the contents, of course. And then say this chains of narration has this number of people, this person is known to be totally a fabricator, a liar. So that whole narration, the content is unreliable. If it comes from a fabricator, a liar, even though he says something, imagine, just to give you how the science in Islam is. You've heard of the hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, all actions are by intentions.
That's right, yeah. The very first hadith of Bukhari, yes, that's right.
Every Muslim, if not or majority of Muslims, know this. Now suppose this hadith was transmitted by, from the very beginning, and one of the person within the chain was a liar. Then this hadith will be classified as a totally unreliable hadith.
Right, well, of course.
Totally unreliable.
Of course.
So we will say a fabricated hadith.
Perfect, yeah.
Even though the contents is true.
It's true.
And it's narrated by other hadith which is sahih.
That's right.
Yeah. So we take it very seriously. The people who are narrating our information, the sources of our deen, our religion, the sources of what Prophet ﷺ said. Okay? So now we know from
But
this.
just a couple of things I just want to say. First of all, when I was having a debate with Hatun, when she mentioned this hadith, we didn't go too much into detail with it.
You
because
asked for where is it? She just mentioned page.
Yeah, page
yes,
11. She said page 11.
That's
and
all
I
she
told
knows.
her, we're not going to take a page. I'm not going to take a page number.
Exactly.
You have to show me the hadith. And she said, I have a page number. I said, I'm not going to take a page number because that could be his explanation of something or hadith. Yeah, maybe it's a muqaddimah or something like that. I'm not going to take that. So we didn't ponder upon this hadith too much, but I know what you're saying. She thought she made a point on that.
But if you challenge her,
you're right. Yeah.
She won't be able to provide the Arabic because she's getting it from, like all the others, because it's a material that's been provided by some person, and then all of them are sharing and using it without actually checking the source material.
Yeah.
So when we go and check the source material, going to the actual book,
Yes, yeah.
as you can see, this is the Arabic hadith.
That's right.
Okay? And this is the footnote number 10.
That's right.
تخريج. انفرد المؤلف بتخريجه إسناده صحيح إلى الزهري والآثار من بلاغاته. Okay? He's already given the verdict. And if you now go to the scholars, what they say about the balaghat of Zuhri, I've made some footnotes where they clearly give you the verdict from Islamic scholarship. So there's no need to go in detail. It's very clearly, in general, they're all extremely weak.
And she backed up, actually, when I challenged her that, she backed off as well, so we didn't ponder upon that as well.
You see they're bringing this up again and again, because it's something that is a food for them, like,
that's right,
a tool they
they're
can
not
use
go
on
away.
Muslims who may not have researched this properly, right? Oh, there you go, your sources say they were not even known after the death. That means the Quran died with them. It was lost with them. But that really shows that, okay, this information is an unreliable information.
It's unreliable
so you can't build up a claim based on unreliable information.
No. One point I'd like to make, you just say, like, Innama A'malu binniyat, you give a very good example. But you say if any narrator in that chain was not reliable, that would consider weak. But if we have another 6 or 7 other narrations, same narrations, but with a proper, reliable narrators. How would we take that hadith? Even though one was a weak
The
one.
ones which are authentic, all the people in the
That's
chain,
right. That's right.
then these are the ones are reliable hadith.
We can, yeah.
The one which has a liar on it,
We can leave that behind.
we reject it.
We reject it.
We reject any information that comes from liars.
We are rejecting that narration, but we're not rejecting necessarily the hadith,
The
because
contents. No,
the contents. You're right.
Hadith is made up of two things. One is the chain of narration, and the other part is his content.
Content, yes.
Right?
Matan.
The content, the matan,
Yes.
is true.
Right.
Every action
Right.
is by intention.
Go on.
But because it comes from within a chain of narration, people who are saying, I just made this up, right? People say one person was a liar, we will reject this hadith. We will reject it. We will not even consider this is a forged hadith, or this is a totally unreliable hadith. Even though the contents is okay. So if a narrator was totally unknown, kul majhool, same again, we reject it because we don't know who the narrator is. It's just that the example that I gave where this narration is available elsewhere in authentic chains of narration, then you can compare it and so on.
Yes,
but
sir.
what if you had some of like that where you cannot compare?
Nope.
Then
you're
this
gonna
is
you're gonna
you
just
have
leave
to
it.
Reject it.
Yeah, you have to
So
reject
we
it.
reject this kind of narration that comes to us. This is how our Islamic science are so strict, so robust in its methodology. We have this confidence that whatever we have received today, there is something that definitely from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we have this utmost confidence of our material.
And
unlike
just want to clarify, sometimes there are narrations, they go in the favor of Muslims, but we found them weak as well. So when we found them weak, in our favor or against, we just leave it.
no, when it's totally made up, fabricated, we reject it. It's a fabricated narration, even though it's in our favor.
In our favor, yes. Like I correct me if I'm wrong. There's a hadith about this. The women used to throw garbage at Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
It's probably something that doesn't have a good chain of narration.
It doesn't good have a chain, so we don't really mention about these things.
Yeah, we shouldn't do because it's not really authentic.
We shouldn't do that. Yeah, that's what I try to do as well.
Good. So now let's move to another example. So I want to give you some examples.
Yes, please.
To illustrate the methodology of how people really come up and start discussing with Muslims, and Muslims, why we need to be really, methodological, and the way our approach should be critical in terms of these discussions when it brings up our various sources of our religion.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Another example.
Yes.
Guess what it's from? Same from Kitab al-Masahif ibn Abi Dawud. Okay. This time is page 11. I remember clearly seeing that she mentioned page 11.
Kitab al-Masahib, and to be honest, I haven't read that, so I say, what is this Kitab al-Masahib? Because
Kitab al-Masahib is not available in English. So where did they get this from? English translation from?
Right. Where did you get it from then?
Exactly. They're getting this from different people who have just picked up verses here and there for their own agenda, and the only thing they can provide is page 11.
So not from a Muslim source, but somebody else translating it for them.
So let's see what this one says.
That's right.
Another interesting one.
Yeah, page 11, yes.
Khuzaymah bin Thabit said, I see you have overlooked 2 verses and have not written them. They said, and which are they? He replied, I had it directly, tilqiyya. This is how the translation goes, right? Automatically, spontaneously. I had it directly from the Messenger of Allah, Surah 9, referring to Ayat 128. There has come to you a messenger from yourselves. It grieves him that you should perish. He is very concerned about you. To the unbelievers, he is kind and merciful. To the end of the surah. Uthman said, I bear witness that these verses are from Allah. Similar to this, I'll come back to the Arabic in a second, is another one about Khuzaymah.
Surah Ahzab, yeah?
Surah Ahzab, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
This one goes like this. We find the actual Arabic narration first, right?
Yes.
No, this particular one is talking about this surah. So Ahzab one is quite different. I think it doesn't actually mention it in this way. Yeah? So this particular one about I found it. No, what they say is Khuzaymah came after they have compiled the Quran. And he says, I see that you've overlooked 2 verses. Do you imagine? They have already finished compiling,
Yes.
and one person comes along and says, but you've overlooked 2. And they're saying, which ones? And he pointed to, this particular ayah 128 to surah number 9 is what you've overlooked. And then Uthman said, I bear witness this is from Allah. Kitab al-Masahif of Ibn Abi Dawood in page 11. So if you look at now, analyze it, if this was an authentic narration, you'd think they've compiled it and they didn't even realize that they missed this verse from Surah At-Tawbah.
Missing, yes.
Does it really show that they were very robust in their methodology in compiling? Because we know the way they compiled at the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu was this way. He made an official proclamation that we are now going to collect the Quran. A verdict was announced, it's like an announcement was made from the door of the Masjid of Medina. Whoever has directly learned and written down the Quran, bring your ayat, your verses, so that we can compile them in a mushaf, a book form.
Right.
So people were all coming down with their verses. They were not just compiling from their own personal copies, because they could have just done that. Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu, he had his own copy.
Exactly.
So did Uthman radiallahu anhu.
Yes. Yeah.
They had their own copies. Why didn't they just say, you know what, I'll just make multiple copies of myself? What do you think? Why? What's the reason? You know the reason already, but I want you to, remind me again.
Because there was rumors that there are many different mushafs written, which are different in recitation and different in meaning.
Okay, let me come back to the first compilation to make it easier. The second compilation happened, according to our reports, copying from the first suhaf that was made and kept with Hafsa eventually.
Yes,
Yep.
that's right, yes.
Radiallahu anha. And second compilation, there's other reports where they did independently again same thing. So if we were to go back to the first compilation during the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu,
Right, yeah.
at that
You're talking about the first compilation?
let's talk about the
Sorry,
first.
I thought you were talking about the
I
second one.
confused you by saying Uthman.
Sorry, yeah, you did, yeah.
Okay,
So
so
first
first
compilation
compilation.
happened because of the Battle of Yamama,
Yeah.
and there are many Hufaz got killed, about 70 of them.
Martyred, yeah.
Martyred, yes. Thanks for correcting me on that. The Umar radiallahu anhu came, I'm paraphrasing it, bit of a little worry to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and says, save this ummah, save the Quran, compile the Quran. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu says, but what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't do, why would I do? I don't want to do that. So Umar radiallahu anhu basically insisted Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu to, you must compile the Quran because many Hufaz are dying, and if they further casualty, we might lose the Quran forever.
Okay.
So then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, this is the basic reason, that's why he decided to compile the Quran. And he called Thabit radiallahu anhu, and he asked, and he actually ordered him to collect the Quran and compile the Quran. So I think
So that's the reason.
That is the reason.
The method they were taking, we'll come back to that. So let's actually see what our hadith materials say very clearly on this, which you have summarized in a very succinct way. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu sent for me. This is what Zayd bin Thabit.
That's right.
radiallahu
Yeah,
anhu
he's
writes.
narrating it. That's right. Yeah.
When the people of Yamama had been killed or martyred, so he went to him and found Umar bin al-Khattab sitting with him. Abu Bakr then said to me, Umar has come to me and said, casualties were heavy among the Qurra of the Quran on the day of the Battle of Yamama,
Yes.
and I'm afraid that more heavy casualties may take place among the Qurra on other battlefields, whereby a large part of the Quran may be lost. Therefore, I suggest you, Abu Bakr, order that the Quran be collected. I said to Umar, how can you do something which Allah's apostle did not do? Umar said, by Allah, this is a good project. Umar kept on urging me to accept this proposal till Allah opened my chest for it, and I began to realize the good in the idea which not have been idea that Umar had realized.
Yes.
Then Abu Bakr said to me, you are a wise man, to Zayd bin Thabit,
Zayd bin Thabit, yes.
and we do not have any suspicion about you, and you used to write the divine inspiration for Allah's messenger.
So he was a Katib, he one of them, yes.
Yeah, so you used to write the Quran basically.
That's right,
Okay,
yeah.
so we've come on to now the reasons why.
The reasons, yes.
But the method they were taking is Zayd bin Thabit was instructed to get his own mushaf and write it. That wasn't how it was done.
No.
If it was done like this, do you know what people would have said today? This is one man's copy of his own Quranic copy.
Of course.
He could have been mistaken.
Yeah.
This is not the copy that is all the companions of the Prophet ﷺ learned. So one man, in terms of his, if you look at the power of the authenticity compared to all of the companions, or the majority of the companions, is quite different.
Yes.
So when we start weighing, the credibility, if we find that one man passed on his own copies compared to what it has been done, then people may have some questions later on.
Of course.
So instead of doing this and making sure that Muslims in all generations in the future have no concern whatsoever about what the Quran is, what they did was something amazing. Okay, when it comes to criticism of the text, textual criticism, even scholars of other fields, they're very proud to see how this is done in Islamic tradition.
Yes.
What they did is say, look, every person, meaning every companion of the Prophet, who have directly heard the Quran from the Prophet and written it down in his presence, bring your material and with 2 witnesses along with it to back this up. The idea of 2 witnesses comes from the Quran. The Quran tells you about 2 witnesses, right?
Oh, yes, of course. Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
When you write something, be it little, small, 2 witnesses.
Make 2 witnesses, that's right.
So they were told to whoever heard, so all primary witnesses. That means what? These are manuscripts which are the primary manuscripts. First-hand authentic manuscripts. Not just copies.
No copies.
Or one person. So primary manuscripts directly written with the instruction of the Prophet during his own presence, because they were reciting back to him, so that Prophet ﷺ know that they have written it correctly.
Basically, you're saying every single verse of the Quran was witnessed by at least 2 of the companions to put in the compilation of the Quran. There need to be at least 2 witnesses for every single verse.
They were written down by the very presence of the Prophet ﷺ.
They were all written down in the very presence of
the Quran that we have today, every single ayat of the Quran comes from primary witnesses who wrote down the Quran from the direct presence of the Prophet ﷺ, who of course checked and authenticated them.
And there are at least 2 of them for every verse.
And there were witnesses.
There were witnesses.
So in doing so, we know from Sahih Bukhari, what I was reading, this is in Sahih Bukhari.
Yes.
Hadith
509.
number 509.
Yes,
right?
Yes, right.
In this particular English translation, in Arabic maybe slightly different numberings, where they did all of this except they could not find one ayah or 2 ayahs from Surah
2 ayahs from Surah Tawbah, yeah. Right.
What does it mean?
But that means they knew the ayahs. They knew the ayahs, but they needed a witness.
They were compiling in the way of direct writing down of every ayat in the presence of Prophet ﷺ. Zaid's waiting. Where is that person who wrote it directly?
Subhanallah.
He knew it. So did everyone else.
That's
did he just say, let me just add it from my mushaf? No. So then came one of the companions, and he was known from other instances. His witness was worthy of 2 witnesses. Rasulullah said in historical incidents, 2 witnesses. But again, Uthman radiallahu anhu, he testified, and so did everyone else. So there were many witnesses to the testimony of this.
So basically we're saying that Hufaz memorized it, Hufaz knew it, it was written down and everything, but they just wanted a witness who, in the presence of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he revealed, he wrote it down, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam confirmed it. So they needed a witness like that.
So we're talking about, you cannot go any earlier material than this. Direct written down of the Quran from the very presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No copies.
No copies.
So if you were one of the companions and you wrote it from another companion, that wasn't acceptable.
That wasn't acceptable. No.
Because we wanted the very first hand.
Very first hand.
So when it comes to authenticity and when it comes to the power of this method, you can't get anything higher than that. Okay?
Can't get higher than that. And that was, we're talking about the very first mushaf written, or Hafs manuscript, we call it.
No, we don't call it Hafs manuscript. This is the.
So
this is how, if you look at it
the
in
very
Arabic,
first one, the one with the
This is-
Hafsa radiallahu anha,
this one,
she kept it.
they call it suhuf. They didn't call it a mushaf. If you read the Arabic,
Right.
they call it, okay, let's consider as a suhuf. So what is
Suhuf,
it?
I see.
Suhuf, okay?
Can you tell us
Look.
what's the difference between suhuf?
Yes, it's very interesting.
Yes.
So what it says, okay? So he says, he did not find except لم أجدها مع أحد غيرها except خذيمة
Yeah.
الأنصاري فكانت الصحف عند أبي بكر حتى توفاه الله ثم عند عمر حياته ثم عند حفصة بنت عمر رضي الله عنه. So the suhuf, during the first collection, it was mentioned suhuf, pages, scrolls, all gathered together. In the Uthmanic compilation, they called it mushaf.
Oh, subhanallah.
Right.
So suhuf
One
is actually
by
plural of mushaf, is that right?
Yep. Suhuf is plural of sahifa, in a way.
Manuscripts.
Sahif, like pages. This is suhuf. Mushaf is like a technical word to describe a bound book, like one bound book. A suhuf could be scrolls all gathered together and placed together.
Okay. Subhanallah. Suhuf is plural of pages.
So this is, you will show how this is
Page.
important in our next discussion.
Yes.
So now let's return to Abu Dawood, the Ibn Abi Dawood
Yes.
and his Kitab al-Masahif. So when he's narrating that Khudaymah ibn Sabit said, you've overlooked what's the reality.
No.
Because this is what happened. So now let's go to his Arabic sources, Kitab al-Masahif. So we see that yes, the translation are good enough because it's not from them, it's from Orientalist scholars, right? They translated it
Yes.
fine.
Right.
So what is the authenticity of this
Yes.
information?
What is the authenticity of this?
Yeah.
Yes. Narration.
If we look at the authenticity, Isnaduhu, this scholar who's authenticated it, he says, okay, فيه محمد بن عمر بن علقمة وهي صدوق له أوهام والإسناد أيضا منقطع. The isnad is منقطع. So it's like cut off.
Broken chain.
Yes, broken chain.
Right.
لأن يحيى بن عبد الرحمن لم يلق, I think it says, عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه. إذ ولد يحيى في خلافة عثمان بن عفان رضي الله عنه. He did not even meet عمر بن الخطاب because this is how the chain goes. حدثنا عبد الله. So Abdullah narrates. قال أبو طاهر from أبو طاهر أخبرنا ابن وهب from عمر بن طلحة الليثي from محمد بن عمر بن علقمة from يحيى بن عبد الرحمن بن حاتم said Umar bin al-Khattab wanted. So this person, Muhammad bin Umar bin Alqama, this person here, he did not meet, he was not even born at that time.
Subhanallah.
Yeah? So
Right.
when he's narrating, so this is why the chain is recorded in the technical terms munqata.
Of course.
Okay? So again, you have another weak report.
It didn't fulfill the conditions for
Yeah,
the authentic
look,
narration. Yes.
Let me clarify now to you in this instance so everyone else who is listening will understand.
Yes.
To
very
a
important.
narration to be authentic, hadith, it has to fulfill 5 criteria.
Right.
Okay?
I only know 3.
Ittisal
Right.
as-sanad,
Right.
the connectivity.
That's right.
Unbrokenness.
Yes. That's right. Yes.
Adalat ar-ruwat, their character,
Behavior,
their
character, yes.
uprightness of
That's
their
right.
ruwat. So forgive me for my translation of the technical terms because there are technical terms in English made also from them, which I don't know what the terms are.
That's fine. That's fine. No
But I'm
problem.
just giving you explanation what they mean.
That's clear enough.
Dabt ar-riwaya, again, his preciseness and precision in narration and so on.
Right. You mean memory? Is he talking about?
No, not just. This is when he says Dabit, someone who is so very precise and very, what is narrating. Are you actually narrating very loosely or exactly word by word and so on, right?
Precise. Okay.
Dabt.
Right.
So you can look it up the words Dabt. So ittisal, adala, Dabt, and intifa ash-shuduz, that it is free from other, shuduz, which is like anomalies. Okay? And this comes from where? Abu Amr bin
Fifth one,
Salah,
is
one of the scholars from which we learn the hadith criticism and hadith studies of hadith.
Yeah.
It says أما الحديث الصحيح, for the hadith which are authentic, فهو حديث المسند الذي يتصل إسناده بنقل العدل الضابط عن العدل الضابط إلى منتهاه ولا يكون شاذا ولا معللا. These 5 points. Okay.
Where's the 5th
This
one?
is in
Sorry.
علوم الحديث.
Did we miss the 5th one?
انتفاء العلة. So there shouldn't be any of these called ilal, okay? It should not be mu'allal. They should not have any of these defects.
No.
So it should be free from defects.
Right.
So if you look at now these two hadith so far we narrated, they are defective. Here, it's broken. Munqata.
Yeah, munqata,
okay?
yeah.
There is no ittisal of sanad.
There's
so
no
it cannot
meeting.
be sahih.
Yes, yes. Right.
So these cannot be used to build up a case against the Quranic preservation. If it was sahih like in Bukhari, then bring it on. We will see what this has to say. And we have no problems with this hadith.
To be honest, that's what we learn from them. These missionaries mostly, they always use these kind of weak narrations.
Yeah.
And if nobody challenge it, nobody know.
You also probably hear, now moving to the third example, where there are people who come along and say, you know what, when during the second compilation, just before, the Muslims were calling each other kafir.
That's right, yeah.
But if you look at actually what the narrations are,
Right.
it says, they said, يقول إن قراءتي خير من قراءتك وهذا يكاد أن يكون كفرا. They were saying, my recitation is khair, better than your recitation.
That's all they say.
And this almost amounts to kufr. Yakadu, it's like almost amounts to. They're not calling each other kafir. This statement that you're saying, my recitation is better than yours, that statement we're saying is almost amounts to an act of kufr.
Right.
You can't say that because both of the recitation.
Is that a hadith you're reading?
So this explanation is given by Ibn Hajar and Fathul Bari from the hadith of Ibn Abu Dawood, and this hadith is authentic according to Ibn Hajar.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So I just took a part of it.
Did she bring this one out, or
If you now go back and listen to some of the things she said, this is what she brings up. Oh, they're calling each other kafir. Even this
you're
one
right.
new person comes along.
You're right. She just very quickly said that and then moved on to the next one.
What we know is this: the authentic reports are that this statement that you're saying, this amounts to my recitation is better than yours. This statement is almost leads
you to kufr.
Not that you are a kafir.
Not they're calling each other kafir, but this statement is not a proper thing to say to each other.
Now, another thing again, so we demonstrated so far, our critics are coming up with inauthentic narrations or narrations which are not something that we know from authentic sources, that just somehow extrapolate and exaggerate from somewhere which may not be authentic at all, right?
Yes.
Let me now show you an example of how they read the English translation and make a mountain out of a molehill. Is that how you say it?
Yes. Yes.
So
Mount out of molehill. That's
molehill.
right. Yes.
So you read the English translation and you think this is what it says, and you say that means it must have been this.
Okay.
And this example again, this is Hadith 510. Remember this hadith?
Yes.
What is this hadith? So Uthman, I'm just going to go to the exact text of the point of interest.
It's a long hadith,
So Uthman sent a message to Hafsa saying, send us the manuscripts of the Quran so that we may compile the Quranic materials in perfect copies.
Perfect copies.
And return the manuscripts to you.
Yes.
So Hafsa sent it to Uthman. Uthman then ordered Zayd bin Thabit, Abdullah bin al-Zubayr, Sayyid bin al-As, and Abdurrahman bin al-Harith bin Hisham to rewrite the manuscript in perfect copies.
That's right.
Yeah?
So basically, he asked Hafsa radiallahu anha to give us the first Quran, the Quran, the original copy, and it was right in front of them, and he ordered them to make a perfect copy. I know he didn't say the word out of it, but he said make the perfect copy. Implication is the Quran is right in front of them, and they need to make a perfect copy out of that.
Do you know what they were extrapolating from there? If you go back and listen to it, they're claiming that the first copy that was made wasn't perfect.
Was not, that's right.
Now they're saying that we're going to make perfect copies.
That's not the understanding of the hadith.
Yeah, that's what it says, right?
That's
but
right.
Look at the Arabic.
And then after, when they make the copy, he returned the Quran back to Hafsa radiallahu anha.
Yeah.
Meaning, while they were making the copies, the Quran was right in front of the present in front of them. So that makes a clear sense that when the copy was complete, the Quran was returned.
But I want to just highlight the point where they are making this claim from this English translation that because they're making now perfect copies, earlier on the copies were not perfect.
That's right.
Whatever it was compiled was not perfect.
That's what their understanding is.
But look at the Arabic. Does the Arabic have anything to do with perfection?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Okay. So, فأرسل عثمان إلى حفصة أن أرسلني إلينا بالصحف ننسخها في المصاحف. Simply saying ننسخها, that we'll copy into a masahif. Give us the suhuf and we make into a masahif. So as we were saying, if we look at the Arabic, it says, okay, أرسلني إلينا بالصحف ننسخها في المصاحف. Send us this suhuf and we make copies into mushaf. That's all. Nothing to do about perfect copies. So and again, as it goes on, it's saying, okay, فأرسلت بها حفصة إلى عثمان فأمر زيد بن ثابت وعبد الله بن زبير وسعيد بن العاص وعبد الرحمن بن الحارث بن هشام فنسخوها في المصاحف. So they copied it into a mushaf. That's all it says. Nothing about perfect copies. So a translator translated in a way, and they're relying on this translation and then making a total claim out of nothing.
That's right. As
so
you say,
this really shows they don't even know what it says in Arabic.
As you said, using that word.
But one additional point though in here, at the end, even in the English it says here, then Uthman, when he says, he sent to every Muslim province one copy of what they had copied and ordered that all the other Quranic materials, whether they're written in fragmentary manuscript or whole copies, be burnt. Whole copies. You know how they were saying none of them had any whole copy? So why would Uthman say, if you have whole copy, burn it? Because people had whole copies.
That's a good point, yes. That's a good point,
People
had whole copies of the Quran, which he said to tell them to burn. That's right.
Yeah. So if you look at the Arabic, this is where it comes out very clearly. So, وأرسل إلى كل أفق بمصحف مما نسخوه وأمر بما سواه من القرآن في كل صحيفة أو مصحف أن يحرق. صحيفة or mushaf. Sahifa means these pages that you have, or mushaf meaning one whole Quranic copy. Yeah. So now we realize again that their misunderstanding comes from where? Let me give you.
If it's a deliberate or it's deliberately they're doing that or making a mistake. I hope it's a mistake or not deliberate.
Now,
but
I remember correctly that also an issue was brought up that this Surah Al-Bara or Surah Al-Ahzab, the hadith goes on and saying they found until this particular individual came along and they wrote this.
Yes.
And it just says من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه. Truncated form of the Quranic ayah, and their claim is, look, your Quran has something more of this ayah, so it's different. Your hadith says they wrote this particular Quranic ayah, and now you have a different ayah. So Quran,
the second Quran on the time of Hazrat Usman.
So when they talk about, the examples I think mentioned in various cases, if I remember correctly, that when Khuzaymah came and he said, okay, now they found it with him, this particular ayah. So among the believers are men who have been true in their covenant with Allah. Surah 33:23, right?
Yeah.
So you responded very accurately how these are normally in our Islamic traditions. When people narrate hadith and they narrate the Quranic ayah within this hadith, because their hadith, Quranic ayah is already known to them, they have memorized it. So they want to just say, beginning of the ayah or part of the ayah, so that you and I know when we're discussing which ayah we're talking about. Their objective is not to write the whole ayah and then say this is the ayah. You'll find this throughout the Islamic literature in the hadith. Throughout. There's no point bringing an example there. It's throughout. This is a common theme.
And when I said that, Hatun acknowledges that. And then she said, but there are many hadiths which mention the full ayah. I said that's fine. But there are many which didn't.
But in this case, the point she was making, this is why I thought like, this is, again really shows the superficial nature of research. She was saying, you will not find anywhere, there's nothing there in your literature that there's a full hadith on this particular ayah. You can't find anywhere.
That's right.
This is the claim she was making.
Right, yes,
now, okay, is that the case? No, of course not. Now if you go to one of our sources, by Ibn Shabba, he talks about the same incidents. And then he says that the person came and they wrote this ayah, من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا. If you now check the Quranic ayah, it's exactly complete Quranic ayah in this hadith. So this is in Surah 33, ayah number 23. which she claims there is no references in the Islamic literature where this is mentioned in full. Yeah?
Sorry, the text might not be too big.
Yeah.
23, this one. Tabdila, yeah?
من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا.
That's right, yeah.
Full quotation of the ayah. And
what
where is
source
this
is it,
from?
Brother Mansur?
Exactly, where is this from? This is from Ibn Shabbah. Has you ever heard of this? I doubt she would ever even know this source. So this is Kitab Tarikh al-Madinah al-Munawwara by Ibn Shabbah from 173 Hijrah to 262 Hijrah.
So this is before
This is the
Bukhari.
time.
This is before
Yeah.
Bukhari.
So when we look at Kitab of Al-Masahif of Ibn Abi Dawood, it was 230 to 316. So we have now someone probably earlier, 173 to 262. Yeah?
Yes, yes.
As a complete ayah. So that really shows the very superficial nature of research and making a claim out of your ignorance.
Ignorance.
When you go to this, so this is,
yeah,
I just want to show you to the
that-
camera,
that's
those who
the
are listening.
answer.
This is a scan pages from Ibn Shabbah, 1001 from this particular edition. And this is the whole ayah. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا.
Surah
And this,
Ahzab, chapter
this-
33, verse 23,
Yeah.
the whole ayah is mentioned.
so this is Kitab al-Tarikh al-Madinah al-Munawwara by this book. So this is the edition of the, anyone interested in more, we can go through this particular edition page numbers. Same again in Surah At-Tawbah, we can find the same again. Now, but did Khuzaymah bin Thabit or Khuzaymah himself only know the ayah?
Of course not.
Look at the claim, only know the ayah. In our hadith literature, we find, examples of where other companions talked about this ayah already. For example, Ubay bin Ka'b radiallahu anhu, he said, آخر ما نزل من القرآن. The last thing that was revealed in the Quran, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ, Surah At-Tawbah. So he talks about, like, the last ayah that was revealed was this 9:128 ayah.
Yes.
Surah 9:128. This is reported in Mustadrak al-Hakim, hadith number 3254, classified as Sahih, authentic by al-Hakim, and Imam al-Dhahabi agreed with him. Authentic narrations.
Yeah.
So you have Ubay bin Ka'b, who's mentioning this already. So it wasn't just Khuzaymah himself. Also, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he says, يرفعه إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قرأ لقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم. It is narrated from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma that he related the Prophet recited, verily there has come to you a messenger from among yourself. This is hadith 2899 from Mustadrak al-Hakim again. Also, from Durrul Manthur, okay, from Anas, he says the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recited, verily there has come to you a messenger from among, same ayah
Same ayah.
again. So now we have Ubay ibn Ka'ab, Abdullah ibn Abbas and Anas, that they all know this verse. So it is now a fact beyond any contention that Khuzaymah was not the only one who knew this ayah.
No.
So this idea, this claim, this criticism, it buried to dust.
I'd also like to add, in 5110 of Bukhari, when the Surah Ahzab, chapter 33, verse 23, that verse, if you read the whole hadith, Hazrat Thabit radiallahu anhu says, we were looking for this verse until I found
Yeah,
Khuzaymah radiallahu anhu, meaning he was aware of the verse.
yeah.
If he wasn't aware of the verse, why was he was looking for
Exactly.
that particular verse? He said, so we were looking for this verse until I found this verse with Khuzaymah. That was what I was trying to tell her, that this is exactly, they were not ignorant of this verse, they knew about the verse, but he was looking for the witness,
Sure.
as you mentioned earlier.
Just to add another point then, since you are reminding me, Barakallah fi. So when you see this hadith number 509 about Surah Al-Bara, Surah Al-Tawbah,
That's right.
the hadith goes on saying, it was then, I did not find this surah, hatta khatimatu bara, until the end of this surah. So they quoted a verse and says until the end. It clearly tells you that, okay, there are more to it.
Yes.
Until the end.
Until
because
the
they
end.
didn't finish it.
Subhanallah. There you
And
are.
they overlook it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
Deliberately, I guess.
these narrations they're coming up with inauthentic, unreliable sources from later on. We have Quranic manuscripts predating them from the 1st century of Islam with the full ayah. Surah Al-Ahzab from the top copy manuscript, right?
Right.
top copy manuscripts,
Right.
is dated before these hadith compilations in Kitab al-Masahif, Ibn Abi
Top
Dawud.
copy. How old is the top copy?
So top copy, at least 1300 years.
So before Bukhari.
Yeah, so before Kitab al-Masahif Ibn Abi Dawud.
Subhanallah.
In here you have the whole of the page, and you have all of them. Here, look,
The whole ayah.
the whole ayah. Min al-mu'minina.
Yes.
And it goes on like this. So full. Min al-mu'minina. Rijalun. Yeah?
Yeah.
Sadaqu. Ma ahadu. Ahadullah. Alayhi. Can you see that here?
Yeah.
فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبَهُ. I have memorized this ayah, as you can see.
Yeah,
And it goes on. Yeah. And it continues until the end. وَمَا بَدَّلُهُ
Since I'm a non-Arab, so for me, without the
تبديلا.
vowels,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a little bit different.
وَمَا
so this
بَدَّلُهُ
way.
تبديلا. It finishes there.
Yes,
And this
right.
is the Arabic script.
Absolutely,
on
that's
this
exactly
one.
what the ayah is saying here.
Yeah.
So
So-
this is in top copy museum, top copy.
Top copy manuscript. Manuscript known as top copy.
So
So-
this ayah is there.
So clearly we've given multiple levels of response to
Absolutely.
this criticism,
I think this is sufficient
which are
if
totally
they are sincere. This is
baseless.
sufficient for them
So
to
if they knew that, okay, now look, not only we have the full Quranic ayah within our manuscripts predating this tradition, which are weak, we have other people knowing this hadith, this particular ayah, other companions, and we have other reports, other narrations which have the full ayah.
Actually, if you are a sincere person, that very narration, if they read, is saying that he was looking until they find till the end, as you say. So they were looking for it until they found with
Yeah.
Khuzaimah radiallahu anhu, meaning they were aware of it. So if you are sincere, you can understand. If anybody is sincere, they can understand what the hadith is actually telling them.
Sure.
But mashallah, this is sufficient evidence to refute their claim
Okay.
that this ayah did exist. It was
Yeah.
in their possession. Subhanallah.
There are various other examples. I think we should just leave it to make it a bite size, and we can carry on
Yeah,
another time,
inshallah.
inshallah.
We can, yeah.
So,
Actually, you know what? I forgot the video. I watched it 2 weeks
yeah,
ago.
yeah, that's
But
fine.
There are
that's-
many
that's
more
right.
points there.
But as you
but
can
at the
see,
moment
I mean,
I forgot about them.
if we go back to our sources and if you assess them critically, and do a proper research on the subject, you'll realize that this claims are baseless, claims are weak without any foundation, claims are something that easily refuted by someone who hasn't had even the proper education and learning in the Islamic sciences, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to share with you, just to show you that the method they're using, that method doesn't show the method of sincerity. Method is not method of a scholarly method, but it coming from people who have an agenda, people who have a particular point to make, even if it means going against reliable, authentic sources, even to just make things along as they go to make their point.
Actually, just want
and
to add,
cherry pick.
I have experienced these things with J. Smith as well. They like to quote weak narrations all the time. And one of them was, if you don't mind me saying that, he was talking about the paradise. In paradise, we will have 72 virgin Muslims will have, 70 the women from the hell, and 2 virgin. And they're talking about their private organs they will always be standing. And this J. Smith, standing up there on the ladder, he quoted this hadith. And I challenged him later on, and it was a weak narration from Abu Dawud. Ibn Majah. And he admitted it later on. But why he quoted something on the ladder where he knew, knowingly quoting something daif? I just wanted to say that this is how they do. They know weak hadith, but they just try to narrate them to make their case. But they can't make their case built on weak narrations. That's not how it works.
Yeah. So this is again for our education then. To summarize,
Yes.
that Allah has blessed us. He has blessed us with this religion which He has perfected, completed, preserved, and left it for the posterity, so we have no doubt in our religion, so that we can really follow the message that He has sent. People will come with criticisms, accusations, but if people are sincere enough and they themselves go and research before making these criticisms and claims, they would have realized that they have nowhere to stand with these accusations and claims. For those Muslims, brothers and sisters, our religion, we have to learn our religion. We have to learn our deen. We have to understand our deen. if we understand, then no one can really have any concern to give us or create any doubts within our hearts, within our minds, once we know our religion, our deen. Because the cure to something that you don't know is what? Acquire knowledge.
Absolutely.
So if you're not sure, if you are, somehow having some questions, because people are asking you questions like this here and there, raising things, because now information is accessible so widely, Sheikh Google and so on, it's easy to get misled.
Easy.
So what needs to do is very clearly, we should learn. Even today, every day I learn. And I don't know anything, that's what I consider. I learn. We should all learn. Learning has no end to our religion. Our religion is the ocean of beauty, ocean of knowledge, ocean of guidance.
Absolutely.
How much have you traversed? How much have you drunk from it? Ask yourself, how much have you drunk from this ocean of the beauty of Islam? So take this imperative, this inspiration from because you're now watching in the comfort of your home from YouTube and so on. But take another step, learn and teach others so that you can build another generation of Muslim who will have a better time without any of these concerns and shubuhat, as we call it, some kind of doubts coming up from all these people.
Yeah.
Once you're firm in your deen, once you're grounded in your deen, that's it, you're thabit. You can't, if you have a strong tree with huge trunk and roots, you can't shake it.
Inshallah.
This is how our religion is, unshakable in its foundation. Our belief, unshakable in our foundation. Why? Because it's the truth, brother. It's the truth.
I just like to add these missionaries or Islamophobes, I would say, some of them, they use the false implications, mistruths, half-truths to make their case against Islam. They do not use authentic narrations or real arguments. All about mistruths. That's how they build their case. So we need to be careful, as you say. If we educate ourselves, we can catch where they are lying, where they're using false implications.
Of course. So may Allah guide them and may Allah guide us closer and closer to the truth.
Thanks for correcting me as well.
Barakallah fi. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.